broadcasting around the world. This is On the Record with Christian Briggs, serious talk about what's happening around the world. Hosted by Christian Briggs. Follow him on X at BMC_HAM. Live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody, we're back. We're talking today with Christopher Walker, and we're going to talk about last night's unbelievable, and you got to give them credit. The Democrats came strong on this one. It was a shellacking. I mean, if you look at the numbers on the key races that were obviously from New York, Minneapolis, Miami, and all these other areas, not just cities, but the governors, Virginia, Atlanta got destroyed. We're gonna have Chris Walker on here to help break this thing down, but even Trump was shocked by the level of Democratic elections. California, Gavin got his new seats, Proposition 50. So I would say that the redistricting ballot measure in California is probably one of the most significant outside the mayor of New York. But the redistricting in California now puts them in the lead, possibly in the House.
Yep.
For 26. So don't go away. We're going to be right back. This is Christian Briggs on the record with last night's Democratic sweep of key races in 2025, which could lead us to the 26 and 28 roadmap here. I hope not. I hope this isn't the roadmap, but if it is, well, at least we know what's in ahead of us and what's inevitable. We'll be right back.
This podcast is brought to you by Hard Asset Management. We have the lowest prices on all precious metals. Call us at 844-426-4653. That's 844-426-4653.
All right, I'm back. We're back. Sort of. We're personally back, but the Republicans are not back. Because last night we saw what I think is going to be, I just hope this isn't a 2010 thing where we had swept the House and all Congress when Obama got in 8, but we blew everybody out of the water in 10. I'm wondering if 26 is going to be the Democrats' 10. Because let me tell you something, this is nothing short of unbelievable. I'm here with Chris Walker today. We're going to kind of go over a lot of the things of which happened last night. I mean, Mary Sheffield wins Detroit mayoral election to become city's first woman mayor. I mean, she's okay. There's so much to talk about, and when you're looking at this, and what's really is that Mamdani quoted in his victory speech, who's not a socialist, he is a communist. He doesn't believe in property rights, wealth of any kind. Government is to maintain all ways of which to control everybody. Everything is going to be free, by the way, so it's good news. I'm not sure how they're going to pay for it, like kind of in Europe when you have like 80,000-90,000% tax rates. I mean, I'm exaggerating the point, but you have to actually pay to go to work. There are actually places in France and some of the states, provinces, or little villages where you have 103% tax rate. So if you make $1 million, you got to pay all of that you made plus an extra 3%. So I'm not sure how that works and how you pay the bills, but maybe that's why the France is falling by the wayside financially. Let's see what else here. New Jersey, hey. Virginia, hey. All of these people are not far left. They're extreme left. They are the communists that are now bringing up what is, unfortunately, we're being led by the 18 to 30 to 33-year-old disenfranchised individual in America, male, female, educated, college, non-college. They can't find a home that they can afford. Nothing, like literally nothing. The rent's too high. They're living with their parents. Food's too high. I don't think these tariffs are working. Looking back now, maybe not as effectively as we had hoped in the near term. Maybe they will end up being the catalyst that really helps us in the long term, which I like to believe short-term pain, long-term gain. I'm still going to be a believer in that. But if we're wrong, then 28's already done. It's already been decided last night. 26 is really pretty much already decided. We know that looking at this. And so we're gonna let myself here, Christopher, why don't you introduce yourself, and then let's talk a little bit about what happened last night and if it can be fixed.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you. Big night for Democrats, bad night for Republicans, bad night for conservatives. I think we've got a long way to go here. You know, there's a couple of takeaways that I thought about this morning and last night. One, Mamdani is not it's very easy to overlook Mamdani from a standpoint of that the New York media focuses very heavily on the New York mayor race and makes it kind of turn into almost like a presidential election when it's not. It's a 5-borough election, and we'll see how effective he is when you have to actually deal with reality. He's a socialist, he's a communist, but um, you know, there's still a lot of free capitalism in New York, and I think it's going to be hard for him to necessarily enact all he wants to do. And again, we've seen New Yorkers for a long time not do well on the presidential stage, whether it's Bloomberg, whether it's Giuliani, whether it's Koch, just Ed Koch. Sorry, not Koch, Charles Koch, Ed Koch, but a lot of Al Smith. We all know New York mayors, but we all know that really don't translate to the national level. So I think that's something to take away for conservatives. My biggest concern and my biggest takeaway from yesterday was Virginia.
In how so?
We have a
Republican governor there now?
We have a Republican governor there now. That's a 15-point swing for Spanberger last night. I think that's a huge shift away from conservative principles. Youngkin was an excellent governor who was doing good work for the state. But also taking away from like the campaign side of it, you have the AG candidate for the Democrats who is openly wishing harm on Republicans and their children. And that didn't affect him at all. Like he ran a few points behind Spanberger, but Spanberger won overwhelmingly. I think the attacks on Sears as a bad candidate, I think, have some merit, but that really wouldn't have mattered. It seems to me that even if you had Duncan being able to run for a second term, there was a blue wave here that just really hit, and that hit harder than people think. I mean, we look at Georgia, we look at California, we look at Texas. Local elections, the mayor of Miami now is shifting to potentially Democrat. I mean, nobody got 50% there, but they're still very likely switching from R to D there. So this is a big pushback on Republicans and who's in charge right now is President Trump. I think another piece of that, every exit poll that we're seeing talks about the same thing: economy. People are hurting. They can't afford groceries. They're looking at health insurance premiums skyrocketing by 800%, and people are scared. The Democrats' solution to that in Congress, which is the impetus for the shutdown, is not the solution either. I mean, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene has had some good points in terms of like Republicans need to put out a plan.
What plan would that be? What is the plan? Because you're right. We are seeing, I think, a takeover.
Yeah.
A communist takeover.
Well, and what beats communism? Free market capitalism. And that to me is what Republicans seem to have lost a little bit. There seems to be a bit of a culture worship rather than a policy, kind of commitment to principles here. If you talked about tariffs, I think free traders are against tariffs. But I think beyond that, talking about principles, the healthcare system is the most regulated, most controlled industry in the country, and we're surprised that costs keep going up. There's no accountability of cost to what's happening. You go to a doctor, you don't know what it's going to cost day to day. When you go to a grocery store, you know what it's going to cost. Having free market principles and having an economy of not price control, but price, influence will really help bring down the cost of healthcare. So I would, any type of solution that I would try to recommend would be free market capitalism. That is the way out of both socialism and out of high prices.
Okay, so let's say that's true. My question to you is, with the momentum and the agenda of the extreme far left now clearly winning, both in the governorship, I mean, we're talking about DAs and mayors, we're talking about city council members, I mean, we're talking about school districts. I mean, this is unreal. New Jersey, New York, Texas, even Tennessee, California, Washington, Wyoming, these all have huge population growth. In both the far left, the extremists, the atheists, the socialists, the communists, the Muslim. I mean, how do you stop it? Because the indoctrination with the young people, at this point, I think last night was a referendum on what possibly could be the state of the economy right now.
Yeah, I think that's a bigger question in terms of culture. This is a generation that really lost a lot of their experience during COVID, and I think we're still living through some of that. Truly culture reorienting, and frankly, rethinking of a lot of things that people thought were good about America relative to, the COVID lockdown. So I think we're still seeing some of that manifest itself with the young people coming out and embracing this kind of hard left agenda. We have a lot of work to do. We have to start teaching people first principles again. I grew up in the Reagan era, and we had an enemy of communism, and we knew it, and we saw it in real time on a day-to-day basis. We don't have that now. There isn't that level of understanding of what people are embracing here when they're voting for somebody like Mamdani. So we have a lot of work to do, not just from a political standpoint, but from a teaching standpoint. We have to start talking about first principles again. We have to start talking about what matters. Again, we've seen it with conservative think tank uproar and everything else. There's got to be a rededication to conservative principles to get people understanding why, not just what. And so that to me means, individual liberty, capitalism, strong national defense, looking at the holistic nature of what made America great and continuing that process. Not just a slogan, there's policies and reasons behind it. We've got to address them.
Okay, so the 2030 agenda may be playing out right in front of us, it looks like.
Yeah, I think so. We've got a lot of work to do on
Finding young people.
absolutely to just get people ready to be ready to have families. We know when young people have families, they get more conservative. We know when people have a mortgage, they get more conservative. When people have work, they get more conservative because they're paying taxes. All of those things are important to get people into the workforce, getting people contributing to society. What's happening in New York is the opposite of that. You have people on food stamps. You have people on, that aren't working, can't find homes, renting. Upset about rent control and price controls, and embracing the idea of free groceries and free buses. You and I both know there's nothing free. And what's going to happen is,
If you don't pay for it and somebody else does.
well, but the people that are going to pay for it are going to leave. I mean, part of the reason why I think the New Jersey race wasn't very close is because most of the moderates and conservatives have moved to Florida. So in New Jersey, I mean, I think that happened 4 years ago. So and I think DeSantis even tweeted to that this morning. All the people that could have made that race more purple have moved to Florida. Great. Let's move to Tennessee and move to Texas. Great. But that's going to leave those other areas more blue, and we're going to see the negative impacts of that. The question is, what is like a Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan who's building a 100-story building in Manhattan going to do when Mamdani comes in and says, you now have a 50% tax on your wealth and your industry? Do you stay for very long? I don't think you can.
I don't think you can either.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I think you're right, Chris. I don't think that the states that are blue are going to ever turn back red, especially with the domination of last night's result. I mean, they were dominating clearly, and it wasn't just that they won by such large margins. That means that there was a huge voter turnout. My understanding is it was the 18 to 30, 33-year-olds came out, and then the 50 and above came out, and it was not positive for the Republicans in either one of those demographics. That's what's really scary, is that we're having now look at this from a whole different world and a perspective of, if we don't re-educate people on the values of capitalism to create wealth, maintain that, and grow that, we're going to be a nation within just 3 to 5 years. If we lose 26 big, and we're probably going to lose 26, then we're looking at something that could spill over to 28. If we lose 28, I don't think we could ever get it back.
Yeah, I don't want to throw in the towel in 26 yet. If we learn the lessons from 25, I think 26 can be salvageable. I agree with you on the notion that the California Proposition 50 last night was bad for us. I mean, we've got 5 seats now going to the Democrats that probably could have stayed Republican. We've got a lot of work to do. There are some major headwinds going on. People can't afford cost of living right now. Groceries are too high. But again, I love the president in a lot of ways, but these tariffs have been a mistake. We've got bananas and coffee and, beef that's becoming increasingly expensive, in part because we don't have
Affordable in some cases.
because we can't. We're creating unnecessary trade situations that are. You can want to reshore manufacturing. You can want to bring back manufacturing to America and address the China threat without impacting the global economy, which we've done. I just don't think that's been wise, and we're seeing the results of that now. Look, the president's a smart man. I trust him on a lot of levels. I've disagreed with him on this one. I hope that changes. We'll see. But I do think Republicans should learn some lessons from this. Talk about the economy. Talk about ideas. Talk about why our vision is better than the alternative. What have we been talking about for the last 6 months? The big, beautiful bill, which people don't know what's in it, and we continue to see things that were worse than when we kind of wanted them to be, and the shutdown. And that's not leadership. That's not people seeing a good thing out of Washington. And we can blame the Democrats, and the Democrats have caused a shutdown, but Republicans are in control. So we got to start figuring out how to talk to voters who are really hurting and in pain, and are seeing a Washington D.C. that's not solving their problems but just creating more. And that's a real issue that I think needs to be addressed. We can learn that lesson. I think maybe Republicans, if they learn from 2025, can pivot and do that. But I am worried about it.
There's a white neighborhood in California. Talk about that. I mean, that was horrible.
Yeah.
I can't believe that went through.
We kind of started that with Texas. I mean, I'm not opposed to that, but now there's a retread to that where California is now going to add 5 seats to their state. So a more gerrymandered California is going to make it where we were up 3 potentially for seats. Now we're down 2 potentially for just winnable seats. We've got a special election in Tennessee where that's going to be a closer one now, just because the Democrats are probably pretty emboldened. That election's next month. So
that was Congressman Mark Green's seat. That's Mamdani is desperately trying to grab.
Well, we need people to vote in Tennessee. You and I both live in Nashville, and we support Matt, but we need Matt. We need people to go vote, and that's where I think something's been missing. There's a effort from a lot of folks that kind of think that online is real, and go on Twitter and just think that, shit posting on Twitter is the way to go. But ultimately it's got to be more than just that. You have to start, sorry, I probably shouldn't have said that, but it's what it's called. You've got to start talking to voters and getting people out to vote. It's not an online election. It's a real election. And that means real voters have real issues that you have to address with them, talking to them one-on-one, not talking to them on Twitter.
No, I agree 100%. You gotta start talking to the voters in such a way that they can relate. And right now, with the economics the way they are, nobody can relate under 30 unless you're making $1 million a year. If you're making $100,000 or less, now, isn't that amazing? $100,000 or less is literally base poverty in some major cities like San Francisco. Go to the Bay Area after they charge you 99% of your money in taxes between federal, state, city, cost of living, all these different things. I mean, you're left with nothing, and you may actually be in the hole, which is really astonishing. Bush, 20 years ago, $100,000 was massive. So what I'm looking at is really, how do you talk to the young people? And I'm not so sure that they're willing even to listen anymore, because in their heads they've been branded not as educated by some media people. They say, oh, the kids just don't know what they're talking about. They're not educated. They're not smart. And these kids are smart, and they're realizing that if you're going to talk to them like that, they're going to show you how really smart they are, and they're going to vote far extreme left just to make a point. And that's what they did last night. I mean, they voted hardcore left last night, as hardcore as you can get. Muslim, atheist. Yeah, the funny part is, and socialist and communist. I mean, those 4 adjectives pretty much say it all. That's what we got last night, and that's what if the country wants to go that far left, and then they're going to be wondering why they have no money and they're living in desolate conditions. I mean, look at the Soviet Union. For 70 years, the Eastern Europe was it was a place of which you never want to call home. It was so bad. Well, that's not true. I mean, if you were one of the party members, you were doing just fine. But short of all that, that's a problem, and that's what we got coming. I'm going to do a commercial break real quick. We'll be right back with Chris Walker. We're talking about last night's shellacking for the Republicans and the incredible progress. I got to say, it's incredible progress. You got to give credit due to the Democrats. The Socialist, Communist, Democratic Party won significantly last night, and this may be the barometer. We'll be right back. I'll be right back. Don't go away.
The Hard Asset Money Show will be right back after a word from our sponsor. In uncertain times, the smartest money doesn't sit in the stock market, it holds weight. The price of gold has risen from $1,700 an ounce in 2020 to over $3,800 by late 2025. Silver is currently around $46 an ounce, a 155% increase from roughly $18 5 years ago. Follow on X at BMC_HAM for all news and the latest developments. Gold has more than doubled in just 5 years, rising from $1,700 an ounce in 2020 to over $3,800 an ounce by September 2025. That's a 124% gain, outperforming the market and proving why gold is the ultimate long-term hedge. As global debt soars and currencies weaken, central banks are hoarding gold at record pace. Why aren't you? Call 844-426-4653 or visit bmcham.com. Protect your future with real assets. Own gold now.
Welcome back. We're here with Chris Walker talking about last night's Democratic sweep in some major races. Even Trump quoted today as being shocked, not by just how many people won in the Democratic Party for the candidates of Virginia, New Jersey, New York City, and others, but by the percentage. I mean, we're talking 13 to 15% over the Republican candidate. And we're not talking about like 2 points. We're talking about 13, 14, 15 points. I mean, that was astonishing. So as we start to move closer to what I think is going to be the reflection point here over the next few weeks, the next month or so, as people try to look back at last night and then they make clear that this is a referendum, definitely on 26, very much could influence the 28 election. This demographic of 1830 to 1833, that demographic is, again, it's being not realized for the value it is. And these tariffs, and I get with you, Chris, these tariffs are not working as effectively, and they're taking way too long to work if they're going to work at all. There may be some better strategies here that the White House can do, and hopefully they'll get some good direction. Trump will. I'm going to say that this redistricting in California is a problem because we were 3 to 4 seats ahead. We've got a special election in Tennessee. As a resident of Puerto Rico, and I do stay there quite often, I'm in Puerto Rico a lot, I see a lot of the things that wish happened down there because it's a socialist little island because it's a territory. That's why it has no representation in Congress as far as a voting representation. And as a resident of Puerto Rico, we cannot vote in the general election, but we do see the winds of change coming. We do hear about that, and the island does talk about that. And I hope that it doesn't go the way of which Puerto Rico or other parts of the world like Spain and Italy or France and the UK with these super high taxes. You're never going to make it unless you inherit it or somehow you win the lottery. And I would tell you this, that Tennessee is a great state. Florida is a great state. Texas is a great state. And probably a lot of people from New York are definitely going to be heading that direction. The question is will they one day realize, oh, this is too much capitalism down here. Let's turn it into what Kid Rock would once say, the beep hole that we left. And so at the end of the day, I really hope that New York realizes the errors of their ways here on this vote. I mean, it was just 24 years ago, the towers came down from, the same thing that he believes in, that Mamdani believes in. So if you're going to sit there and vote for someone to destroy your community, make sure that you understand that this is something that could last in a definite period of time. And if you have kids and grandkids, you're walking them right into the pits of fire on this one. So this is bad news, real bad news, because it's not just the moral decay that this is going to bring, it's going to be the economic collapse. Jamie Dimon's right when he said this is going to drop real estate by 50% or thereabouts. He was talking about this could drop real estate by half. As 1 million people leave, then who's going to buy that property? Well, nobody. So, I mean, drop 70%. I mean, I think $10 million condos could be over $2.5 million. Because if Mamdani raises the taxes to the level he's talking about and then doubles those tax rates on real estate for the white neighborhoods, I mean, who's going to pay 5-10% wealth tax, 5-10% real estate tax, 20% income taxes? It's going to go all the way to the governorship. New York dictates policy for the state. It's the way it is. Forget Albany. They may be the capital, but they do not hold the purse strings. It is New York City. New York City politics dictate policy of that state. And it flows over to other states in the area. Christopher, where do we go from here?
Yeah, you touched on a couple points, and I think there's something to really kind of hone in on there. One, New York is, Jamie Dimon is right. I think, you talk about Mamdani, he's talking about trying to make things more affordable. Well, he's going to do it because everyone's going to flee New York. But that's what communism is: destruction. You're eliminating. They're going after wealth. They're punishing success and wealth at the expense of growth, and they're going to tear it down. They're going to destroy what is our best, one of our best cities. So affordability is a mirage that is going to be used to really take a sledgehammer to what New York has been pretty much since the 1940s at the very least. And I think that's it's a sad fact to see. Hopefully Mamdani doesn't follow through on some of the things. We saw Bill Ackman tweet at him this morning saying he wants to help. Maybe this fervor of socialism will in some regards be blunted by reality, and maybe business leaders can come in and say, well, this is just not going to affect what you think it's going to do. I think the people around Mamdani have said very clearly they want to defund the police. They want to really kind of impact the city in what they mean in a real way. That's going to have detrimental effects for crime and what we saw in San Francisco, but on rocket fuel, because San Francisco was at least trying. This is now in full embrace of socialism. I think that's very terrifying. However, maybe the state and the city council can kind of come through. We'll see. Um, Reaching young, that's going to be a challenge that all of us need to address. I think one things we need to do is start identifying some younger leaders in the conservative movement to start making some of those conversations. We obviously lost Charlie Kirk a couple months ago. But I think we have an opportunity to identify, 25 more, and creating that environment where there are good and right policy thinking leaders that can come in and start to sway that mentality. And it's going to mean having disagreements within the Republican Party and having public disagreements and understanding that. And that doesn't mean that you're not pro MAGA or pro conservative. It means that you have a broad set of ideas. We all can disagree on certain things and still be on the same tent. And I think that's going to be an important part of the Republican Party growing and not just shrinking. I'm afraid we're shrinking right now, and that's what we can't have. So a lot of work to do, and a lot of it is going to be non-Washington. I think that's the other piece of this that I think is going to be really important. I think the Republican Party over the last 10 years has become very Washington focused. And I think that's the wrong look. I think we need to be focused back on states and localities. Community is what's important, not Washington. So the more that we can talk about how policies can impact you as in your neighborhood and you and your community. Everyone wants a safe job, a safe neighborhood, a good job, and a good education for their kids. If you could talk about those three things, you're going to win. And talking about all the other distractions in Washington, I think, is going to be a big piece of, a losing pie. So I think that's something we really need to do. Conservative principles work. It works best at a local level.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any that. I agree with everything. But the question is at what point do we say we're going to have to re-educate these people? Maybe we need to have re-educating camps, like in China. Maybe we have to, or Canada. We have to re-educate people for what is considered to be the greatest experiment in human history, this country, and the founding documents that were then provided us as a roadmap and kind of a containment to try to stay within this particular agreement that was put together by very smart men who did argue, who did fight over 11, 12-year period to write the Declaration, to write the document, the Constitution, that would then give us the opportunities. And why people still think that because you have some segment of the community having a little more advantage than others in a sense of you could be taller, you could have blonde hair, you could have blue eyes. These are things that are just the way it is. But everybody has equal opportunity and everybody has a chance. It's a question is if you take that chance, and to penalize people who took the chance, took the risk, in some cases risking everything they owned on that, in order to be able to further their value in a sense of in the community, to create the jobs. So they took the risk, and now they're being penalized for creating 1 million jobs to bring greatness in economics to whether it was the local community, the state, the federal government, all these different things that they did where they could have done it in any other country, right? So we should penalize other people in other countries for success. So I got to tell you, I'm going to end it at this, Chris, and that is I'm disappointed the way people think so short term. Biblically, you're supposed to think long term, and people expect immediate results. And because they expect immediate results, they always, like the day trader, they always lose. In the long run, they will lose on the short term. People that are impatient are not understanding patience is a virtue. And now they're looking for instant gratification. They've elected these communist leaders, and now they expect all of these leaders to instantly give them some measure of their success, whether it's free healthcare, free cars, free transportation, free money. They all expect this now today, and they're going to want it today, and they're going to keep voting it until they get that day. And unfortunately, I think that day has now started. Again, short-term thinking is detrimental to well-being. It's detrimental to wealth creation. And people that buy something on a Monday expecting to sell it on a Friday are ill-conceived to be able to ever think that is a real-world opportunity. It's got to be look down the road 3 to 5 years, look down the road 10 years. And if you do that, you can see everything coming. It's all clear. This is Christian Briggs on the record with Christopher Walker. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, as always. Let's keep it going. We'll keep it really going.
All right,
Yeah.
Will. Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Gold has more than doubled in just 5 years, rising from $1,700 an ounce in 2020 to over $3,800 an ounce by September 2025. That's a 124% gain, outperforming the market and proving why gold is the ultimate long-term hedge. As global debt soars and currencies weaken, central banks are hoarding gold at record pace. Why aren't you? Call 844-426-4653 or visit bmcham.com. Protect your future with real assets. Own gold now. In uncertain times, the smartest money doesn't sit in the stock market, it holds weight. The price of gold has risen from $1,700 an ounce in 2020 to over $3,800 by late 2025. Silver is currently around $46 an ounce, a 155% increase from roughly $18 5 years ago. Follow on X at BMC_HAM for all news and the latest developments.